All right. Well, welcome everybody that's tuning in to a special edition of our Lunchtime Chats with Tlingit Haida. I'm Richard Peterson. My Tlingit name is Chakya Ish. I'm Kagwantan from the Eagle's Nest House, and I'm president of Tlingit Haida. This is a really exciting edition for me today because this one we're unveiling our new youth commission, and we have some pretty powerful panelists here with us today, led by our current emerging leader, Shawan Jackson Gamble. And he's really brought in some amazing young leaders from across our region, Tlingit Haida. And so some of them aren't in our region, but are in Seattle and other places. And this is really exciting for us as we've been having these lunchtime chats. It's our way to kind of just have more direct communication and access to our tribal citizens. And this is exciting. So we have some former emerging leaders and just young leaders that have really shown, their amazing leadership. So I'm excited by that to talk about this. I have been involved with Tlingit Haida for over 20 years, and in that time, we have had so many adults, so many elders, and some of us in-betweeners between our youth and our elders say how we need to engage our youth and how we need to do this and we need to do that. And it's funny how it always seems to work out. When we need our youth to lead, they lead. And Shawan, as our emerging leader, sitting on the tribal council with our executive council, saying, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And putting in, I think, the first resolution we've ever gotten from an emerging leader. And so he's been very passionate about putting together this commission and gathering this group of really amazing leaders that find themselves in that kind of emerging leader, young leader role. And so this is just a real proud moment for us to formally announce the establishment of our Youth Commission. This group has developed the entire structure of the Youth Commission right down to the bylaws, and they've put in all the tedious work to really formally create this commission. And they've had some staff support. Sarah Dibdahl, who is our Director of Cultural Heritage and Education Department, Rocky Estrada, who works there, they've been that support. They've had my support, and I hope I've demonstrated to Shawan that really he's empowered to lead this group and for this group to feel empowered to do what they feel is necessary. We've kind of given some very loose framework, but really want this to be driven by the youth. And so I'm really proud of the work they've put in. I mean, they've put in some hard work, long days and meetings and developing for themselves what this looks like. And I think that's so appropriate that, it's our youth that tells us what this should look like, tells us what leadership should look like. So I don't want to say too much more. I'm just going to turn this over, and I'm going to introduce Shawan Jackson Gamble, our current emerging leader, and have Shawan introduce himself and his group. Shawan?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Chakti khat dusak, Sagwedi na khatsati, Kiksadi yadi ayakhat, Kachadi Dachkhan ayakhat, Kikwan dach ayakhat, Ka Khayit dach ayakhat. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Shawan Jackson Gamble. My Tlingit name is Chakti, which translates to Watchman of Hamilton Bay. I belong to the Tsagwedi people of Cake, and I'm the child of the Kiksadi and grandchild of the Kachedi. And I also belong to the Yellow Cedar House of Cake. With that, I kind of just want to open it to the whoever wants to keep introducing themselves, or to the group.
I'll go. Tlingit Haida Aktusha Yuchatu Sak Yechna Hatati Shinedi Ayachat Chutigakwan Ayachat Alberta Aspen Yudu Sak Aklik Tuchkayedi Ayachat. My Tlingit name is Aktusha, which means woman of the lake. My English name is Mishiona Hutcherson. And my family comes from Angoon, and I'm Raven Dog Salmon, and I'm a former emerging leader for Tlingit Haida. Gunashish.
I'll go next. Tlingit Haida Skohat Yuchat Duasak Yesh Ayahat Takwanadi Nahat Sati Hinu Konda Khayat. Hello, my name is Michaela. My Tlingit name is Skohats. My family comes from Klawak, and I am happy to be here.
I'll go next. My name is Keenan Sanderson. I come from Ketchikan. Most of my family, however, comes from Prince of Wales Island. I'm also a former emerging leader. I think back in 2017. I graduated from UAF in last May with my degree in fisheries and ocean sciences, and I specialize in salmon and groundfish management and science. And I am the current Indigenous Food Sovereignty Coordinator for the Ketchikan Indian community. And I also am the head coach for Ketchikan High School's National Ocean Sciences Bowl team.
I'll go next. Tlingit Haida Schachen Yuchat Duasak Tleka Haida Stephanie Masterman Yuchat Duasak Wishkitan Ayachat Hunakawu Ayachat. I'm Stephanie Masterman. I'm Wishkitan Dakdintan Dashkhan Ayachat. And I'm a former emerging leader, and I'm based out of Seattle, Washington.
Mary Bell Dinan Uejan, Robert Kennedy Dichin Uejan, James Anderson Dichat Uejan, Forrest Anderson Diau Uejan, Diuk Is Olagang, Gasaan Stuhl Uejan. My name is Marina Anderson, and I'm Raven Sculpin. My family's from Klawak, Alaska, and Heidelberg, Alaska, and I reside here in beautiful Kasan.
I suppose I'll go next. I'm Kevin Allen. I come from Juneau. I was born in Anchorage, though, and I graduated high school back in 2016. I'm young AD, Eagle Wolf, and my family, my grandmother was Evelyn Myers, and what I do is that I'm a member for the Juneau Tlingit Haida Community Council. I'm also a council member over at DIA, one of the vice presidents. And through DIA, I serve on the search board of directors. And then I also serve as the second vice president for Alaska Native Sisterhood, and I also serve on the school board for Juneau. So that's who I am.
Okay, I will go. Kuchish Yuchat Duasak, Yesnachatsati, Kiksari, Kachari Aya, Gagandach Aya. My name is Kuchish. I am a Kiksari, adopted Kachari. I live in Haines, and I am the vice president of Chilkoot Indian Association. I am a delegate to Tlingit Haida's Tribal Assembly, and I just wanted to thank everyone for listening in on us. We've created a pretty good foundation, and I am ready to encourage all the young people to come hang out with us and be a part of this, and help us create your foundation for who you might become. So, Ganshish, thank you for allowing me to introduce myself.
Liz?
Hey, sorry for the little bit of delay there with my tech. Nun Koiga Kianan Sinudi Nan Kiagan. Nun Koiga Kianan was my grandmother, Mona Jackson. She was from Haida Gwaii and Heidelberg. Ganahake Hinudi Chan Kiagan. Ganahake was my grandfather, Tommy Jackson Sr. Hoth Lungadas, he was Tlingit. From Ketchikan, our community here of Cape, Alaska. Stathkawas Hinudi Aukiang. Stathkawas is my mother, Della Chini, she's a teacher and a weaver. Bill Chini Hinudi Hudkiang. Bill Chini is my father. He makes his home in our community of Cape here. Lagunai Hinudi Hudkil Dikiang. Lagunai is my Hudkil name, my Haida name. Gatsakas Gustu Dikolagan, and I am of the Eagle people. Chichkitne Jana Sudi Ijong, and I am a Chichkitne woman. Our crest is the hummingbird. Katsas Yuchatuasa, Katsas is my Tlingit name. Yechna Chatsati, I am Raven. Kachadi Ayachat, and I am Kachadi. Gleka Yadi Ayachat, I'm the child of the white man. My father, Bill Cheney. And Tsagwedi Dutch Kanayahad. I'm the grandchild of the Tsagwedi, the Kilauea people. Ganesh Chish Hawa for having me on this afternoon.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for taking that time to introduce yourselves. So I'll go ahead and start the conversation and have some questions. The format here is we'll go through some questions and conversation. And then afterwards, we'll open up for kind of public comment, folks that are tuning in, and Sam will moderate that, or Rayanne, one of them, and we'll ask questions that come in over the Facebook Live. So, Shawan, can you tell us a little bit why it was so important to you to see a youth commission formed?
Yeah. I think it was important for me to see the Youth Commission form because there was a lack of youth voices heard at the table, along with other issues that regard our home communities. I noticed that that other than the emerging leader, there wasn't much youth involvement working with policies, and I think that there need to be more of a collective voice among our youth. There could be a lot that we could learn from our youth, the issues that we probably never knew about. I seen being in a circle with other youth from across the nation at the NCAI Youth Commission, and that brings issues to the NCAI's board. And also at that same NCAI, I seen the Sitka tribe bring a resolution forward about their herring litigation at NCAI, and then I just followed the resolution from the sub full committee and then eventually to the floor. And I got to understand how a resolution works. And at that next executive council meeting, I had a resolution drafted to establish a youth commission, and it passed unanimously. Lastly, it was kind of important to me because I drafted the resolution to establish the Tlingit Haida Youth Commission, and I thought I had to follow through with the action and wanted to ensure that the next emerging leaders and Youth Commission will have a solid foundation to work with. I also thought that it's equally important to celebrate the community's successes rather than to focus on the issues, because there's a lot of beauty within our communities.
Well said. Can you elaborate on how your youth commission is structured?
Yeah, it would be more of like my idea is that it would be a collective voice among our youth delegates. There would be like in a circle peacemaking manner, not so much of the tribal courts aspect of it, but ensuring that it's a safe place to share with one another among the commission. Our idea is that there will be 1 to 3 youth delegates coming from each chapter community of Tlingit Haida, and there will also be officer positions for the youth commission. The president of youth commission, first vice president, second vice president, the secretary, commission members at large. There'll be 2 of those. And the current serving emerging leader would be like an executive officer for the serving as them, where the emerging leader would bring the topics that were brought up and report back to the executive council and give a report on what was discussed among the youth commission. It's very similar to the structure of how NCAI does their youth commission. And that's where I kind of got inspired to establish the youth commission after partaking in theirs. I think that creating a collective voice among our youth and letting them have a voice will bring a lot of positive changes to our communities.
That's awesome. Liz, I understand that you've met with our Youth Commission Advisory Group. Can you talk about your role in supporting this group and perhaps give some words of encouragement to our youth?
Yes. I think I have had not very much of a role with this group on purpose. I've come forward when they've asked me, they've reached out and invited me, and I've responded. But I've really tried to keep my nose out of their business because I think it's really critical that these young leaders lead. Yep. And they have everything that they need to do that. Earlier when we were on the call this weekend for the virtual rally for Black Lives Matter, that was one of the things that I was really reflecting on as well, is that right now we really need our young people stepping out in front and leading us. They are inheriting a world that is in shambles, and they are the ones that have the solutions to really enact that. Can we assist them? Can we support them? Can we encourage them? Can we give them guidance? Can we help them learn through mistakes that they make? Absolutely, and I think that that's our role as aunties and uncles. But it's really up to them to put this stuff forward and to make it work. And every single Alaska Native person, Indigenous person alive today, we need every single one of us. And when our young people step forward and are trying to do something, our role is to support them and to help them achieve their dreams. And this is a dream of so many people. My nephew Shawan was a person who was a conduit for a dream that so many leaders and ancestors had. And every single one of these young people is a conduit for realizing their ancestors' dreams and how they do it, the spirit that they do it in, the love, the connection, and the hard work, right? It's not just showing up for a meeting here and there. It's actually walking the talk in your community. It's going out and standing up for people and advocating for our issues. It's going out and providing food, taking care of our elders and our community members. And that's one of the things that I love about this group of people. These folks are the show up and get it done folks. And I know that when all our other youth have an opportunity through the launching of this youth commission today, I think that you're going to see some really incredible ground mobilization, because our young people, one of the things that we've dropped from our language is emerging leader. As soon as we are born, we are emerged. And every single action, grooming, and learning is a part of that work. But these young people are already doing the work of leading. They're already stepping forward. They're already serving their community. And so I just really encourage you folks to not think about yourself as emerging. You have emerged. We need you now. We need your leadership now. We need you to mobilize your colleagues, your brothers and sisters in your generation and younger. We have some really huge things in front of us this year. We have a census that our people must engage in. and you folks know how to engage people. You know, I'm excited to see the work of this commission. We have elections this year. You folks know how to get people interested, engaged, and use all your platforms to do that. This youth commission can be really critical to protect the well-being of our people. So I just really want to encourage you folks and just love you up. And I'm so excited for your work. And, you know, as always, call on me if I can be of any help. But you folks have an incredible opportunity that you've put into place for all our youth. This is for all our youth. So Gunishish Hawa for your work.
Gunishish Hawa, Liz. I think it's so important to note that Liz and I both, I think, really strongly agree that this is belongs to our youth. You know, we don't want to be the ones you hear from a lot, but I think it also says a lot when they want to hear from you. And Liz is one of those people. She fills that auntie role for so many, that our youth, while they are so strong in their own leadership and their own views, I think it says a lot that they still look to their Auntie Liz for some guidance and for that love and encouragement. And I think that's our job, is we can give guidance and kind of share ideas, but more importantly, I think our job is to lift you up and just love you and say that we value you and get out of your way sometimes. So before I return to Shawan, I want to kind of engage a little bit with this advisory group. And I want to say just my personal appreciation when Shawan was putting this together and wanting to involve you, how eagerly you all stepped forward. Says a lot about each of you individually and your leadership. And so Gunishish Hawa to you. So, and I know it's pretty amazing, all of you fill so many different roles, and I feel a special kinship with you because I was a young leader too, 19 at mayor and 21 tribal president, and I see very similar tracks for all of you, very young, already in enormous roles. And I want to encourage you and tell you, when you have that self-doubt, you have your ancestors in you. You are qualified. Never question whether you're qualified. You were born, as Liz said, you were already born emerged and showing that leadership. Kevin, you have been very busy as a young man and getting your voice heard and your voice of your young generation and community here in Juneau. Can you tell me, in what ways does knowing or learning parliamentary procedure and resolution drafting benefit the Youth Commission? Does it benefit the Youth Commission?
I think with parliamentary procedure, it's a tool, I think, like any other. In a meeting where you have a large group of people, which is what we're going to have here with this commission, you know, we're talking double digits of numbers in order to make sure that there is consideration for everyone's voice at the table. It provides a balanced opportunity, and so I think it's necessary. It's definitely changed over the years, though. It's not as rigid. But I think the Youth Commission will get their own sense, kind of like we have with parliamentary procedure, on how to use it. So, I still think it's a useful tool.
Great. Stephanie, you're a former emerging leader on our council, and you've been very active. I know you're a full-time student. You work, and you know there's been some really heavy issues in society right now, and you've been one of those ones in the forefront, making sure that your voice and your generation's voice is heard. How does incorporating rallies and protests create change, and how do you imagine incorporating the two in the Youth Commission?
So rallies and protests are very special because they are so powerful. People really at any capacity to push for change can participate in rallies. So that's one thing that is unique and a driver for unity is that anybody with any capacity, any skill, all you need is just this feeling that things need to change and I need to somehow get there and be a part of it. And then even within protests and rallies, people sort of fall into where they need to be, whether they're a speaker or someone that needs to share their story and reach the hearts of those in the crowd, whether they are somebody on the sidelines guiding people and keeping them safe while they're in the protest. There's a place for everybody in a protest and a rally. You can be at the front pushing the barricade toward the police, or you can be the voice in the back, making sure that everybody is communicating and on the same page. We talk about diversity of tactics when we're pushing for change. And so the cool thing about protests and rallies and bringing people together is when you leave those rallies or those events and you go home, whether you're a parent or a child or a student or an educator or a healthcare worker or a healer, or you're an artist or a business owner or a politician, whatever role you fill outside of those spaces, you have something to take into those spaces. So everybody has a job and they can find the passion to do their job by being involved in those protests and those rallies. Something that is really important to me about those spaces is that a safe space is created for our humanity. The reason why people come together in rallies and protests is because of a lot of times anger, and unrest, a lot of times grief, and then this sense of urgency. And so that's why people go out there and they act like that. And there's this safe space where people can say, you know, FTP, where they might normally be faced with brutality or even put their life at risk if they were just an individual on the street sticking up for themselves, say in the face of police. So this safe space is created where complete strangers are there to support you in your humanity and say, let's work together and, you know, fight for this change. And so where that fits into the Youth Commission, you know, I guess looking through an Indigenous lens, with protests and rallies, you're looking at just people and the land, no other barriers. And as Indigenous people, like, it is our duty, our obligation, our responsibility to speak up on our lands, and then be welcoming of those who want to do that with us. And so the Youth Commission will function the same way. Youth delegates from the different chapters and then the commission officers are accepting that inherent obligation to speak up for their lands and make change for their lands and their communities. Liz mentioned and Shawan both mentioned about the spirit of the peace in the circle. One thing that's really important that I want to say is that with the Youth Commission, there is this sense of how do we work together because we're not in competition with each other. We don't have rules. We don't have like the intimidation of a vote to keep us from altering our pathways. We all work together, and that's really, really important. And then it takes a lot of courage to step outside and participate in things like protests and rallies and to speak your truth in an unfiltered way. And so if you can do that out there and people will still support you, complete strangers, then you get this confidence that you can speak your truth and be in a safe space if we create our Youth Commission to be a safe space just like that. And then one more thing, very important, knowledge is power. So, we have these education systems put in place, and there are a lot of gaps, and usually our family and other leaders in the community help us fill those gaps. But sometimes all you need to hear is someone else's story, someone else's pain, someone else's inspiration, and you'll get that while you're out there in the streets, and that translates directly over to the Youth Commission. How can we elevate our voices to that next level? How can we use our resources and our leaders, like like people like you, President Peterson and Liz, and the people who are supporting us? How can we use them and their resources to help us elevate our voices to that next level? Yeah, that's what I got.
I don't know about all of you, but I can tell you, when I hear Stephanie speak, I literally feel like I hear our ancestors. She does a fantastic job. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Marina, with your involvement with tribes, how do you feel the Youth Commission can be beneficial to our various Southeast tribes?
Well, I forgot to mention earlier that I'm also a former emerging leader for Central Council. And with that, President Peterson, you just became the president of Central Council when that happened. And as you know, but not everybody knows, I watched you become a leader pretty young. And when you were making room, I guess, for the younger leaders like myself, you were not just doing it for Prince of Wales Island or for Kasan. You really set aside and pushed open some room for young leaders like myself to start building a network with other younger leaders in Southeast Alaska. And for me, what I'm seeing is a lot of these leaders popping up and working at our tribes, or they're like Stephanie, they're leading in rallies and in protests. And it wasn't until I had this network of people in my life that I was able to actually fully have the confidence to have a real conversation with peers that are closer to my age. And with building that network, we were able to build off of each other and listen to the issues and the successes in our different villages. And what I'm seeing everybody do is bring those issues to the attention of our older leaders in our communities as well, and engaging our older leaders in our communities. And it's almost like a gateway from the social media world, or the world where Michiana texts me and tells me to show up on Sunday morning on a Zoom chat for coffee and some social justice. But that's kind of our everyday life now. And what I see is that at a younger age, we're starting to recognize that we're not going to be able to run away from politics ever. And if we want to truly have a voice in our villages and in our communities, we need to start engaging really young, and not just with our own village, but start engaging with the other communities around as well. And not only that, but as the administrator, I see it as a good avenue for workforce development. A lot of communication skills are learned, a lot of accountability is there. It takes a lot of self-motivation just to show up to some meetings, or to even read the resolutions that are going to come before people. And that to me is real world workforce development. That's what I want to see on a resume, when you're coming here to work here. But I'm extremely excited. I wish this was around when I was really young, because I think high school would have been a lot different for a lot of us if we would have had this type of opportunity. We would have been able to have some conversations similar to what I was able to have with some of the older leaders, I guess, in my time. So yeah, to bring those conversations to the forefront and make a space for that is important.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. When you look back, I think when you look at the formation of A and B and E and S, which was kind of the grandparent to a lot of what you have today with our tribes, our leaders were young. So it's not new to have young leaders kind of re-emerging. But I think we went through a period where folks were just either struggling to live, struggling to survive. That leadership, kind of, it was those people who started young and just kind of kept being leaders for a long time. And I remember when I got involved being young, so many were so excited to see me at the table just because they were worried that there weren't going to be young leaders stepping up anymore and who was going to come after. I started to feel that myself. And now I look around and I feel like, oh, we're in better care with those that are stepping up now than when I did. So I'm really excited to see it. Shawan, can you talk a little bit about how the Youth Commission is going to work with our current governing body, our Tribal Assembly and Executive Council?
What I envisioned, or what we envisioned as a group, is that the emerging leader, like I stated earlier, would have their duties and responsibilities increased more by working with the Youth Commission and reporting back to the Executive Council about the topics that were brought up. With Tribal Assembly, we thought because of how much delegates that there already were, that it'd be best to send the officers to Tribal Assembly rather than send the entire Youth Commission because of how much delegates there already are. The officers would bring a resolution that the commission decided on the issue that they thought collectively need to be changed or has to be talked about at Tribal Assembly, and a lot of it will be put on the officers' responsibility. They're going to have a pretty active role, and but it's also going to be a collective voice. It's not going to be what the officers want. Everyone's going to have a equal say, like it's in the circle peacemaking manner.
James, you're a current delegate for our Central Council. You've been a delegate for multiple terms. How do you see the Youth Commission helping bring issues to delegates?
I feel like youth have the ability to see into the future and see the future world that they want to live in, and they've been able to have the opportunity to see the current generations and see where they've gotten stuck and see where they've failed. They have an opportunity to bring light to those issues and have the opportunity to allow everybody to see those things that are in the dark, so everyone is able to grow from the youth's light that they're bringing in. So they'll be able to create resolutions and bring them to the floor. So everybody in the Tlingit Haida's delegation would, who are delegates, would be able to hear those issues that these youth are bringing up, and it creates dialogue. We all saw what happened at Elders and Youth and AFN this year. Youth were able to make front page and really engage the whole entire state, and really that's what my hope is with this small group that we're creating now, is to grow. And really, if our youth get together, and I believe that all of us, if we get together and we use all of our brain power, there could be we can create change throughout the world. And that's with every group that's put together. If we all come together and with good intentions and respect one another and love one another, there's a real opportunity to change the world. And this is an opportunity for youth to do just that.
That's awesome, James. Shawan, do you see this youth commission working with other youth commissions? I know, like Haida Gwaii and has one, the Gwich'in have a youth council, NCAI you mentioned. Do you see yours collaborating with those?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal, and that's what we can collaborate with them, and and learn from them, and what works for them. I think at events like AFN and Elders and Youth would be an ideal place to collaborate. Like on our resolution for AFN to establish a youth council or a youth commission, statewide, so that we could have a voice at the tables, at the table with leaders from across the state. I think that there's a lot of power when we come together and fight for our people. Look at how much policy change is happening in these current protests. We are the generation that has to deal with the damages that are being done to our lands and waters. From logging and resource extraction and mismanagement of our lands and waters. We always want to do what's best. Like James said, we could see the future. And we could. I think that we always want to do what's best for the generations yet to come. What we will do for our next generations is truly upon our up and coming leaders. And by coming together, we'll be a super powerful tool to our communities.
Great, thank you, Shawan. Kind of following up on that, Ms. Shiana, how do you envision that working with other youth councils or commissions can help other multiple entities with the issues that we all deal with?
I think that youth coming together across multiple entities is one of the most powerful things that they can do, because anytime you place a single youth in these rooms where policies are being made and decisions are being made, it makes a powerful impact on those who are seated at the table, even if it's only a youth that's, sitting and listening. So to give these youth an opportunity to come together and to create a united voice where they can say exactly what Shawan was talking about, this is what we want to see in our future, because they may be younger than us, but they're looking beyond what we're looking at right now. They're seeing their future. They're deciding what they want for their children and and from there on. So it's really powerful to have that accountability included in the conversation. And even more so when they learn to write things like resolutions or, to write white papers and share their opinions with the world in those formal avenues. That's even more powerful, because then you're using the tools that the quote unquote grown-ups are using, and it gives them less room to argue with you and to say, you're young, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, youth definitely have an opinion. They know how to come together in ways where some of us old fogies may have formed opinions about each other and, have grudges. Youth are more focused on, let's create this thing that we're dreaming of. Let's create a better world for ourselves without any ego in the way. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And there's a time-tested saying that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's one of the most incredible things that I've gotten out of the opportunity with Tlingit Haida as emerging leader, out of the opportunity of working with First Alaskans. It's who you meet in those rooms. It's the friendships that you forge. It's the avenues that you haven't seen before. Those are the things that you take away with you. Those are the most powerful tools beyond any degree or class or anything you can take. And for me, that's what's most exciting about this youth commission that we're forming, is that, they'll have each other. And that's really powerful. So I'm excited to see that unfold.
Yeah, I agree with that. Marina touched upon that as well in her words. It's those networks that you build I'm a product, and you know, this is kind of a controversial thing to say, but I'm a product of the boarding schools. And while it was a little different era for my generation, as a leader in Alaska, and Alaska has 229 tribes. You know, I think it's 150 some village corporations, and then we have regional corps and our health systems. There's so much room for our Native leadership now. And I can tell you, many of the leaders that I work with today are people I went to school with. You know, it's that network that you build, you hold on to, being able to be in rooms, being able to support each other and hold each other up, and just being indigenous and having that commonality helps build that web, that network that you can kind of hold on to for life, right? And hold each other up. And that's one thing I notice about your generation. You guys probably do a better job of holding each other up and holding each other accountable in that space, and you do it in a safe way. And it's something I've really come to admire. So, Keenan, I want to turn to you. You're a former emerging leader, and you're working for a tribe now. I'm wondering what you think, what changes to issues do you see in the future that the Youth Commission can address?
Right. So I'll just go out and say I think the possibilities are endless. And I'll give Shawan's example of his experience, and including my experience too with NCAI's Youth Commission. The things that we were able to accomplish in our short time there is absolutely incredible. And I think one of the things that really perpetuated their success was their diversity of people representing different tribes from around the country. And I think having the Youth Commission, the way we have it set up now, we have 1 to 3 people coming from each community, and there's going to be so much diversity coming in from each community. You know, we're going to have people from low-income families. We're going to have people who are in high school or in college or post-college, and everyone is going to be bringing different perspectives into the conversation to be able to get the objectives that they want done. In terms of, I should say, in terms of specific things that I think that are going to be focused on, I would imagine that it's going to come down to 3 things. It's going to be coming down to community health, so things like drug and alcohol abuse awareness and related things. I'd say environmental and natural resources management, and protecting our rights to resources, including salmon and halibut and anything. And I think falling under that too will also be talking about how mining in British Columbia is going to be impacting what we're going to be doing here in Alaska, and also social justice matters, including missing and murdered Indigenous women, and potentially even working with other entities like Black Lives Matter and the LGBTQ community as well. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, but I think that's what's going to be a focus on the most. I had something else I had to say. But yeah, I really do think that the possibilities are going to be endless, and there's going to be changes at the local level, at the state level, at the national level, and within all of the different communities within Alaska, or within the tribe, I should say.
Right on. Michaela, I'm going to turn to you. And I want to take a second to recognize Michaela just got selected to be the youth board member for See Alaska. And I think that's such an amazing opportunity. And I'm so proud of you, Michaela. You're another just fierce young Tlingit woman who's kicking butt and taking names. And I get to work with Michaela a little bit, so I'm immensely proud when I watch the work that she does. Michaela works for our tribal courts, and she runs the Youth to Wellness program. Did I get that right? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, Michaela. And, you know, we've been to some of the same trainings and that have been really powerful, and got to work with, I don't want to elders, but some of our folks like Mike Jackson and Cheryl Fairbanks, who really brings a lot of pride to me, because there are people, but they're world renowned for the work they've been doing. And we've been able to kind of just sit in rooms and like you feel like you're absorbing superpowers or something. I feel like hearing them. And it's, you know, everybody is like talks about how, oh, everybody's related. Well, of course we are. We're Tlingit Haida. We're supposed to be. So it's awesome when you like think Mike Jackson, and that's Shawan's grandfather. That's his Tranan. You know, Cheryl's your auntie, and we're all connected and interconnected, and I think that's our superpower. I'll get off my soapbox though. Michaela, how are the talking circles an important aspect of the Youth Commission?
Yeah. So I think that talking circles are important because they're an Indigenous conflict resolution process. And I think the value there is when there's a conflict, rather than pointing fingers at people or saying, oh, you're the reason for this issue or whatever. It's a chance for everyone to come together, bringing all their different perspectives, and then addressing the issue as a collective, and also saying, you know, what are solutions that we can bring together and connect on. And I definitely want to give my gratitude to this advisory group, because while I don't think we've done like an official talking circle of like actually being in a circle, I think in our meetings we have done a phenomenal job of listening to one another's voices and respecting our differences, and then still trying to say, okay, how can we come together? What is the best way forward? And so I think that is a beautiful, it's just a beautiful thing for sure. That's, yeah.
So Michaela, can you talk a little bit? You guys have come up with this program or challenge that you're going to put out today, right? And I think it's brilliant. And, you know, I learned about it. I didn't have any input on it. This was all you guys. And I think that's what makes it better. So it's called the Old Ways Challenge. And it's a challenge we'll be kicking off, and it's hashtag Old Ways Summer Days Challenge. So can you talk a little bit about that, and I guess why you guys, give me a little background on it and why you guys decided to do this?
For sure. So this group wanted to hold this challenge as kind of a call to our youth to take initiative this summer and be leaders in their communities. And while it is definitely encouraged and good to be a leader who speaks out, but I think also another great way to be a leader is by leading by example. And I think a good way to do that is to participate in our traditional ways. And so we wanted to call out to all youth 12 to 27 to participate in our Old Ways Summer Days Challenge. So what that means is this summer until September 18th, we are hoping youth to go berry picking, fishing, doing form line, whatever that is, take a picture or video, and then use the hashtag Old Ways Summer Days. Our group here will be monitoring that hashtag on the different social media platforms to be mindful of those entries. So every time you use Old Ways Summer Days hashtag, that's an entry into our contest. And so with the contest, each youth is allowed 10 entries. So, you know, do something 10 times, take a picture, video, and by September 18th, we will judge those entries. And the prizes for that is you could win a MacBook Pro, iPad Pro, GoPro, just all the pros. And so if you're already doing that, I've seen some parents already post their kids doing things, and just use the hashtag. I mean, you could win one of these things. So we really want to call out to you all and participate in this and just have fun during the summer too.
I think what I like about it is how fun it is. And, you know, you guys really wanted to do something and get people energized and involved and energized about living our way of life. And I always tease Shawan because he posts and makes me jealous. All the different things he's putting up our foods, and he's out hunting, he's out fishing, he's gathering, and but I tease him. But that's our way of life, and that's to be celebrated, and it's so healthy and brings us back to who we are. And I think it's a great way that we can interact and promote too. And man, I mean, look at some of these prizes. You guys be crazy. Not you're already out doing it. Get a picture on there and put this hashtag Old Ways Summer Days, because man, you know, a MacBook Pro, iPad Pros, Google Pixel Book Go. I don't even know what that is. So that sounds cool though. A GoPro 8. I think today's my birthday, so I think I just aged out. I just turned 28 today, 44 today. But yeah, that's really awesome. And you're saying that you can submit both videos and photos?
Yes.
That's cool. Any kind of eligibility requirements? I mean, we want to make sure there are probably nothing bad, no violence, no, just good, fun, clean living our traditional ways, right? Am I missing anything there?
No, just reiterating, we're calling to youth 12 to 27, and we recognize that some youth might not have social media, like maybe some 12-year-olds don't have Facebook, and so we are recognizing that, you know, some parents may post for their kids who are 12 to up.
Right. No, that's awesome. I know we're nearing the end of our time. I'm just going to say, though, let's not feel bad if we want to go over. We have just a couple more short questions, and we want to be able to take any questions we might have got. And then we also have our own door prizes, so to speak. So if we go over, just hang in there with us, folks. We appreciate it. It is so awesome to be able to hear from so many amazing and powerful voices today. There's such power that comes from our youth. Just going to turn back to Shawan a little bit. Will there be a youth summit? Is that something you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, that was something that we've discussed in our planning meetings that we've had. And we planned and discussed the Tlingit Haida Youth Summit, where will be like an in-person meeting or gathering of all the youth commission members or delegates, youth delegates, and also the advisory committee, where we will be teaching them parliamentary procedure, professional development, participate, you know, in resolution drafting and advocacy training. We also envisioned that it's not all be focused on you know, classes and stuff, but we also thought that including cultural activities like weaving and carving, form line, working on traditional foods, and we have a lot more planned for the future summit. But with everything going on, we decided that'd be best to be pushed to a further date, either after the tribal assembly or spring of 2021. We wanted to make sure that our communities remain safe because of COVID, and with having a large number of youth in one place and returning back to their communities, that brings great risk to our elders. But we will, you know, keep everyone in the loop of everything that we're planning for it.
Right. That's, you know, one of the things that I'm left with on this is something Marina had said is how great this would have been if she would have been able to participate in something like this when she was in high school. And I think as we develop this, you know, my dream, my hope for you guys all is that this is something that we start being able to really get going in all the communities and our youth, right? And instilling our tribal values. It sounds so simple, but I'll tell a very brief story. When I became president, actually when I was campaigning, a dear friend, sister of mine said, well, what are you going to do, brother? You know, and one of the things is I said, well, I want to, you know, indigenize the tribe. Awesome. What does that mean to you? She really held me to the fire there. And that sister's staring me in the eyes right now, Liz. But that was good, that accountability. And it made me think you can't just give these answers and not have ideas and solutions. And for me, when I said I wanted to indigenize the tribe, I made this big grandiose speech to all the staff once I was elected, like, we're going to indigenize the tribe. And it kind of actually offended everybody because they didn't know what I meant by that. They thought I was saying they weren't indigenous or they weren't indigenous enough, or I wanted them to come to work and hoo-ha, you know, all these different things. And really it was just, you know, let's run the tribe with our values, hold each other up. You know, these things, these core values that our elders and our ancestors have developed for over 10,000 years. But, you know, it's how you present it and not letting our own value system be co-opted by assimilation and things like that. And so that's what we're doing. And when I think about that and I look at all of your faces right now, you know, six and a half years ago when I was saying we're going to indigenize the tribe, I didn't know it was going to be all of you that did it for me. And I just think it's amazing. And I look and I feel like you're bringing those values in. And I didn't set out and tell you to do this. I didn't guide you in that. This was you. This was all you guys. And I'm just so proud of you for doing that. I want to thank all of you panelists today for the hard work. And that really concludes my conversation with you. And so we'll turn it over. And Sam, do we have any questions from our beautiful audience?
Yes, we do. We do have a couple of questions. Thank you, President Peterson. This one's kind of a three-part question from Blossom Twitchell. As young leaders of your communities, how have you dedicated yourself to help your peers find the success that you have found? With some of the highest dropout rates, suicide rates, and the growing rate of opiates, our youth need leaders that they can not only look up to, but also leaders they can relate to. So the question was, how have you dedicated yourself to help your peers find the success that you have found?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that I've done just over the years, you know, probably starting in 2016, I believe, is I started going back to my high school. We had a Native American education program at Auburn High School where I graduated from. And I started going back just really to hang out and get to know the other Native students that were coming in the years after me, and just talk to them and share my experiences with them, so that they know, like, hey, there is potential. Here's all the possibilities I have once I graduate, and just share my story. And then that actually ended up leading into going to different school districts and doing that. And then eventually I ended up sort of being like a mentor, and not just somebody hanging out and talking to them. So that's one way, and it's really easy to get involved with your own school or youth in your own community in that way.
Michaela?
Yeah, so this question definitely sticks out to me. So as a kind of in my family, I'm one of the older nieces, and I have a lot of younger cousins who kind of watch what I do and how I act and what I'm doing, what I'm involved in. just kind of looking at how I carry myself. And I think recognizing the hardships that my family and community has faced has definitely driven me to pursue further education. And so from the work with tribal court, I feel like I found my calling to go get my master's degree to become a clinician, because I recognize that there needs to be more of an indigenous perspective within our healthcare system. And I think including our ways of life into that practice is super vital to our well-being as Indigenous people. So thank you for asking that question.
Thanks, Michaela. Keenan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So as I stated earlier, I recently became the head coach for the Ketchikan School District National Ocean Sciences Bowl team. And for the, I think, 10 to 11 years in its existence, I was the only Indigenous student to go through that program. So when I was able to finally take over control of the program, I immediately contacted, and even before then, I was contacting the Tribal Scholars Program at the Ketchikan Indian community to create a program and a team to be able to develop knowledge for the students at that program, as well at the high school, to incorporate both traditional ecological knowledge and also Western science, to be able to put stuff, if they were ever able to go to natural resources management or fisheries or marine biology or whatever, they have the knowledge from both sides to be able to go put forth to the table. And I hope at some point that we could use this I guess template, so that people who are across the aisle from us can also, that are mainly more associated with Western science, they can include traditional ecological knowledge into their proposals and ideas to be able to help come together and meet in the middle to fix the problems that we need to do for our, I will say that I'm more ocean based, but for any issue that Indigenous and non-Indigenous people face, we can come together and bring both those together to fix our issues.
Awesome. Sam, any other questions?
Yes, the last part of that question from Blossom was, what has been your main focus on accomplishing community youth success? And what is your advice for the younger generation that's looking up? And what can you tell us older generations?
Anybody want to tackle that one?
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, so what has been your main focus on accomplishing community youth success? And do you have advice for the younger generation looking up to you?
I would say some advice is to not be afraid to go to those meetings that are being held within your communities, especially to give public comment, and I highlight that because of how important it is to give public comment at meetings and stuff like that, because it lets the people in those entities that it lets them know what the people want, and it shows that you care about the issues that have to do with your communities, like the roadless rule. There's over 96% people keeping the roadless rule in place, and that shows that the majority of Southeast Alaska cares about an issue like that. And I just want to encourage a lot of youth that to go to those meetings, and make your voice heard. That the leaders will listen to you and make space.
I just want to jump in as well and say, don't be afraid of your voice, and don't think that just because you're young that you can't contribute, because a lot of people, older people, can get complacent in these positions that they hold, and they need to be reminded sometimes and youth are the perfect people to remind them of why this work is important, of why they show up every day to those jobs. And also, like we discussed before, you know, this, you might not understand all of the fancy words that somebody's using in these meetings. You might not understand all the paperwork, but if you have that call in your soul, then you have a right to speak about all of these issues that we're discussing, and we need you to discuss those with us so that we can decide the best path forward. And I think the other part of the question that Sam mentioned was talking to our older generations as well. And I think that that's one of those things where our Indigenous worldview comes into play and our values come into play, because we need everyone at the table. Everyone in our community counts, and it's that bridge between the youth and our elders that keeps us going. So, you know, listening to your elders as you make these decisions for yourself is really important, because there's wisdom there that we don't have as young people, and it's valuable.
All right, Sam, do we have one last question?
We do have one last question from Vicky Sobolev. What will be the role of the Youth Commission at the annual conventions?
Because of it's kind of like a collective voice among, you know, Southeast as a whole, similar to like how tribal assembly works. You know, it'll give a understanding of what everybody is in favor of, and you know what the commission wants. And you know, I think that utilizing the officers to attend those meetings to talk about, you know, the issues that they care about. You know, some of the you know, like I come from Cake, and you know, I don't specifically know that issues that go on in other communities. You know, I know it's very similar, but you know, we'll each have a, you know, like a play space, you know, care of what we have for our communities. And you know, I think going to those different conferences or, you know, discussions, you know, I think that having the youth there, you know, will be, you know, like they're saying, it'll put a, you know, kind of pressure on of what they're doing those actions for, you know, why they come to work and why they're on the board, you know, that it will have a youth voice there at the table.
So, Shawan, if youth are interested in joining the Youth Commission, how can they apply?
Yeah, we created an application that it should be on the Tlingit Haida page underneath the emerging leader tab, I believe, or else it might be on the post. I could be wrong, but there should be a link for it on there. But if anybody's interested in some of the topics we talked about, or you know, feel like they need to make a change within their communities, you know, I'm reaching out to all the youth to you know, join.
Great. Well, I just again want to thank all of you. This has just been amazing. You guys have put in some tremendous work, and you know, to Blossom's question about advice, I'm not a youth, but one of my advice to my generation and older is, you know, we got to make that space for that participation for our younger leaders, and you know, don't put them down, don't hold them down, give them the space and let their voice be heard. And you know, they have strong ideals, they have strong voices now. We just need to make sure that our hearts, our minds, and our ears are open to them. And I think that's where we can do our best for these younger leaders, to encourage them. I think I've seen people say they want youth, and then the youth shows up, asks a question, and we almost get angry at them or put them down, and then shocked when they don't come back. And so we need to be careful with that space, and make sure it's a space that holds people up. And you know, we're all, you know, I'm not exempt from doing that myself, you know, and we just have to learn to do better and be better each time, and learn from those. and that's what we need to model for our youth. We do have, just closing, we do our random drawings of those that like the conversation as it's happening. And so this week's winners for this one, we have Bernice Donnelly has won a Boxley Formline t-shirt, and Anne-Marie Wyatt has won a Hydro Flask. So congratulations to you ladies, and thanks for participating. Thanks for tuning in. And, you know, make sure that you come back. I think Friday we're gonna have our regular lunchtime chat. Had to be moved to Friday, and this one's gonna be with our executive council. So, you know, this year we're not able. Well, so far we haven't been able to hold our tribal assembly, and we're still deciding on what that looks like for this year, whether we're gonna have it or not. But you know, we want to hear from our executive council and the hard work that they're doing, and how they're representing, and what topics and what issues. And I think we're also gonna unveil our annual report and during that. And so for those of you interested in our annual report, I think we have a lot of success to report this last year, and we're really proud of that. And so please join us. And again, we just went over a little bit today, but I think we covered a tremendous amount. Really excited about what this has been. And I do want to give Liz an opportunity to say something.
Yeah, Ganesh Chish Hawa. I just really wanted to take this moment to recognize that this is a really incredible day. It's an incredible day because our young people have been working hard. Our Tlingit Haida, Southeast, our Tsimshian young people have been working hard to put together this youth commission. And that's so incredible. I can't wait to see the work, because it's hard work, right? Like, creating space is not just about making room for people. It's about doing the hard work so that you can continue to advocate and lead our people. Just like one of the people on this call with us today. It's a special day because of the Youth Commission, but it's also a special day because it's Richard's birthday. So we all want to say happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Yay!
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Love you. Hi, Paula.
Well, thank you. Thanks for embarrassing me. I tried to say I was 29 earlier, and I got, during the meeting, texts from people laughing their butts off at that. So apparently I can't pull off 29 anymore. But
You
that's okay.
tried 28.
28, there you go. So thank you, Liz. I love you, sister. So with that, now that I'm embarrassed, again, thank you all so much. I'm tremendously proud. And again, I just want to say something again and repeat myself. You've exemplified what I'd always hoped in indigenizing our tribe and incorporating our tribal values. And I look at each one of you, and you reflect that in your actions and what you're doing. And so I just want to say Gunachish Hawa to each of you, and continue speaking your voice, speaking your truth, and showing up. And, you know, in each of you is that leader. You don't need to be validated by anybody else. You're that leader, and speak with the confidence that our ancestors kind of put in all of us. So thank you, everybody. Be well and be safe, and till next time.